you go to France or Spain or wherever, like these professional teams have academies that have youth teams, and those youth team coaches are like certified coaches, or maybe they were even a top tier coach 10 years ago, and now they happen to coach the like U12 Barcelona basketball team. So you're still getting top level coaching where, and once again, this isn't like throwing shade or anything, but I know if you go out in San Francisco, there might be a guy who has his training company and he might have 40 or 50 kids, but it's just like, oh man, you're not teaching them like how to read a backdoor cut. Or they have no, like you would be amazed if you came to like some of my practices where I'm throwing out basic terminology and the kids have like no idea what I'm talking about. What's a seal? What's a backdoor cut?
Oh,
What's strong side, weak side? And it's just like, oh man, like you could dribble, you could shoot, you know all the moves, but wow, just there's basic stuff that we're just kind of lacking.
The following is a conversation with Andrew Heath on the 5th episode of the Performance Pulse podcast. Andrew's journey showcases the process of turning a passion into a career and finding an alternative route to stay in sports without making it to the professional ranks. Andrew currently serves as the athletic director and head basketball coach at the Drew School in San Francisco, California, and is the founder of Andrew Heath Basketball. His collegiate experience at Emmanuel College in Boston, where he played basketball and ran track, paved the way for a deeply involved career in sports from a unique perspective. Starting as a marketing intern at Harvard University, moving to ticket sales at Boston College, and eventually diving into basketball operations on a global level, Andrew's path has been rich and varied. A defining moment in his career occurred when he trained his first professional athlete, a WNBA player, whose positive feedback about the impact of his coaching deepened his love for the game and suggested that his true calling lies in coaching. Recognizing the need for formal education to advance his coaching career, Andrew pursued and obtained a master's degree in sports management from Manhattanville College. His diverse experience includes playing professional basketball in China, extensive coaching stints abroad, and a role with the Golden State Warriors organization as a youth skills development coach. Since moving to the Bay Area, Andrew has led the basketball program at the Drew School and founded Ball to Books, a nonprofit initiative aimed at supporting underserved schools and communities through basketball clinics and educational programs. Our conversation delves into Andrew's journey, his love for basketball, and insights on the game's evolution, including coaching tactics, the concept of positionless basketball, and the role of data analytics in the rise of basketball skills coaching as a full-time career, a term I coined the Chris Brickley model. Highlighting the global nature of basketball and the opportunities it presents, Andrew's story exemplifies the impact one can have on the sport. Andrew's dedication to basketball and his influence on countless lives showcases the profound impact of those who dedicate themselves to the sport. Join us as we explore Andrew Heath's inspiring journey in the game of basketball. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel and please support our podcast. To learn more about my work, check out our website at hyperspeed-usa.com. Now, without further ado, here's Andrew Heath. How's everyone doing today? We're here for episode 5 of the Performance Pulse podcast. I'm your host, Coach Wilson, and I have a very interesting guest with me here today. His name is Andrew Heath. He is a basketball specialist, if you will, beginning with being the athletic director and the head basketball coach at the Drew School in the San Francisco area. He is also the founder of Andrew Heath Basketball and the co-founder of Ball to Books. I'm really excited to have this conversation. How you doing today, Andrew?
I'm good, man. I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, absolutely, man. It's a pleasure having you on. And the way we had got connected is through this matchmaking platform where you're looking for podcast guests. And I'm on quite a few different podcasts as well. But really with this whole Performance Pulse podcast now where we're going is looking to find people that really have this high performance mindset, work in a competitive domain, coming from different walks of life. And really just know what it takes to compete and go out and get theirs on a day-to-day basis. And you absolutely embody that. I'm a huge hoops fan, so Super excited to have you on. So the first question for you though, man, is like what drew me into your background was looking at your resume. I saw you working with the Golden State Warriors development program, saw that you did stuff in like ticket sales at BC, saw work at Harvard, saw that you played basketball in China. Now you're a coach. Talk a little bit about your journey, if this was something that you always envisioned or if it was just an organic process.
Yeah, I think I definitely knew I always wanted to be in sports. The journey along the way and some of the stops definitely couldn't foresee. And even now, being a director of athletics at a school in San Francisco, enjoying it, it's been a great time. But definitely didn't, I wasn't in high school or college thinking this was going to be one of the journeys as well too. But yeah, no, started out playing all types of sports. Basketball was definitely my first love, but grew up playing basketball, soccer, played Pop Warner football for a little bit. Fast forward to college, I went to Emmanuel College in Boston. Was a two-sport athlete there. Played
What kind of
basketball,
sport?
basketball and ran track.
Okay.
Yeah, so I did the 2 and the 400, and then the 4x4.
400's grueling.
Yeah, no, man. Honestly, it's that that time running track, I think, toughened me up for anything else because track practices and just that last 100 in a 400-meter race, man, it tests you for sure, for sure, for sure. Yeah, and then I think after I finished school, and then I think like kind of what everyone feels or goes through is like, well, what's the next step? I think especially being an athlete, especially coming from like a small school, we're not producing like NBA draft picks or like NFL draft picks. So I definitely had some teammates who like did the overseas route and stuff. But it wasn't as like concrete or as just like routine as I think it is like for some other schools or other student athletes graduating. So there was like a big question of what do I want to do? Where do I want to go? Do I want to stay in sports? Do I want to just kind of get a regular 9 to 5? And since I was in the Boston area, I think I did luck up, was able to snag some internships and some part-time jobs, working at Harvard, working at Boston College. And that's honestly where I knew I kind of wanted to stay in the sports industry. I was kind of splitting time doing ticket sales at BC, and then I was a marketing assistant for the Harvard athletic department.
You're doing both simultaneously.
Yeah. So it was fun. It was fun from an aspect because I can get all my family and friends free tickets to games. Got to take my parents to the Harvard Yale game, which was cool. But yeah, in that moment, I was like, I know I want to be in sports, and kind of like to what you were saying in the intro. I just love the competitive atmosphere, and this is just working like ticket office and like the marketing office. I'm not even like working with the team or talking to the coaches or players, but there's still just a competitive atmosphere and the sport fans. And I was like, all right, I definitely want to be in sports, but I was still kind of finding like, what role do I want to be in? And at this time too, on the side, I'm also like coaching AAU basketball teams and doing like personal, like individual training. And even at that time, the individual basketball training wasn't this huge industry that it was now. It was literally just side hustle. I'm looking to like get some gas money or, take a date out on the weekend. And this isn't paying my bills. This isn't paying a car note or anything. This is just, I'm coaching in the morning to have money for Saturday night type of thing. But doing that, and then I think with the coaching and stuff, and that I actually linked up with my old college coach at the time, who was just kind of hearing what I was doing, and he was hearing that I was doing some basketball training and coaching, and he's like, "Hey, do you want to come coach with me at this company called Visionary Basketball Group?" Which was it was in Melrose, Massachusetts, just outside the city. And it was all like former college basketball players that were starting to do the player development stuff. And I was like, yeah, sure, why not? And with that, I was able to train some high level players. And I think I fell even more in love with like coaching and basketball. I was like, oh, I really want to like dive into this. I had an opportunity to train a WNBA player by the name of Chanel Mokongo. She played for the Sparks. She went to Mississippi State, and we're doing a session, and she was asking me questions. And at this time, I was almost looking up to her. I was like, wow, you're in the WNBA. Like, I feel like I'm just here helping you through a workout. But she was like, hey, like, on my footwork on this, what should I do? Or, hey, like, how are my shoulders looking? Or, like, hand placement and stuff. And I was, giving her the feedback. A few weeks go by, she plays in the game. She comes back. She's like, oh, what we did really helped. And I was like, oh, this is a new feeling. This is a new feeling of I'm just falling back in love. So I was like, okay, cool. I kind of want to, once again, stay within sports, but dive more into the coaching aspect. So also at this time, too, still being a personal basketball trainer or a skills coach isn't a thing.
Are
So
you
I'm
hooping
looking.
at this time as well? I'm curious, like, are you playing and still working on your game because you're pretty young, you're fresh out of school? Like, where were you at in your own hoop journey at this point?
Yeah. So rewind a little bit. Back when I just finished school, I did attend some overseas like combines and stuff. And actually, the coach who asked me to go coach with him, he had some touring teams, which I'm sure like guys are familiar with, where like they get a bunch of guys to take you to like Germany for a week or take you to Puerto Rico for a week. You play some games and hopefully you get picked up. So I had done all that, right? I was coached by the touring teams, went to the overseas combines, and like nothing had come my way, right? So in my mind, I'm like, cool. I tried. I threw my hat in there. Didn't get any bites. So I guess it is on to the next thing. I was still playing pickup, and yeah, I'm still 22, 23, 24. So I'm still like staying in shape and stuff. But the whole mindset of I'm going to play basketball professionally somewhere is kind of like gone out the window. So I'm like, cool. Let's coach. This is a way to stay around the athletes, stay around the players, and then I actually, which I think is kind of you were saying, just a go-getter mindset or being competitive. One of the combines I attended while I was there, I realized, oh, like these dudes are like making some good money. Because I was like, okay, cool. There's 200 of us at the camp. We each paid a few $100 to attend this. There's some dude cashing in right now. I was like, let me go talk to that guy. So I literally went and go talk to like the director of the camp, and I was like, hey. And this is not at the camp. This is like a year later. It's, hey, last year I was an attendee at one of your camps. I'm not looking to, sign back up. I was wondering if you need help like running it. I saw you had some camp coaches. Is there any way I can help out? So at this time, I'm still working with my coach. I'm still doing part-time at Harvard. And then in the summers, I would go to Vegas to help run like combine camps for guys looking to play overseas and stuff. So just another way to stay involved. But I'm thinking, what's the next step? I apply to be like a college coach. So I'm looking at different colleges to apply to. And what I don't think a lot of people realize is a lot of these colleges, especially the higher levels, they want you to have a master's degree, which kind of caught me off guard too. So I'm applying to this, even like a Division III school. I'm applying to be like a Division III assistant. It's not required, but we would like a preferred master's degree candidate. Apply. Okay. So I'm starting to catch on. All right, I need my master's degree. So that kind of spurred me to go back to school, get my master's degree. Got it in sports management. I'm thinking, okay, this is what I want to stay in. And then while my master's program, my love for coaching still stayed there, but then I think it opened me up to like, there's so many other roles and avenues you can take within the sports industry besides being a coach and besides like the ticket sales and marketing that I had done. So I do a 2-year program at Manhattanville College in New York. And it was great. Got exposed to a lot of stuff, expanded my network. And then this is kind of where it also had another transition that led me to go to China, which kind of led me to like play and all that stuff. So in grad school, and it's kind of just like a recycling of like events and experiences. So similarly to when I finished undergrad, what's the next step? Great. I finished grad school. I just piled on more internships. I was in the New York area, more connections. I have this experience coaching now, doing all this stuff, throwing out different resumes and interviews for different job opportunities. And still, nothing's like coming my way that I want. And now at this point, too, if we're being honest, now that I have my master's degree, I'm also kind of looking for a certain like dollar amount for like my jobs too, right? Like I've done, I've done my time in a sense. I've worked my jobs. I've done my internships. I'm not looking to just like have a few part-time jobs that lead up to
a bag
like,
now. You need a return on your time.
Exactly.
Sure.
So nothing's coming through. So I literally, and I joke about it with my wife, because I met my wife out in China, of like, I kind of remember the moment where I was like, I got to take a chance on something, which led me to go to China. So I'm literally in my bed, just looking up at the ceiling. I was just like, I got to just make a decision. And I was like, I've helped guys get overseas to like play basketball and stuff. What if, and I'm thinking not from a playing perspective, what if I like try to coach overseas or do something in a different country? So I basically started applying for jobs, and I started looking for like English speaking countries. So I'm looking in England, Australia, I'm like Canada. I'm like, all right, I took Spanish in school. Let me see what like Mexico's looking like, Spain, Argentina. let me test those countries out.
Yeah.
And I did get a few bites. But then a lot of the countries, there was like visa sponsorship issues, or we need you to come at this date, and just it didn't match up like schedule wise. So then I was like, okay, cool. Let me just start looking at other countries. I start testing out some of the Asian countries. A job in China pops up, and I jump on it. I apply for it. I apply in July of 2015. By August 2015, or like maybe like early September 2015, I was in Beijing, China, coaching basketball.
Hey, I did lose you a little bit there. If you just want to reset what you said for like maybe 20 seconds, you said you did get some bites back, and then where'd you go?
Yeah, so I started expanding my search a little bit to some Asian countries and other parts of the world. I had an interview for an academy in China, in Beijing, China. I applied in July of 2015, and by like September, October of 2015, I was in Beijing, China. Didn't know the language, didn't know a single person out there. Just made a complete like risk and jump and took it. And then I think from there, it completely changed my life. As you mentioned before, I stumbled upon some leagues and had an opportunity to kind of fulfill the childhood dream of being able to get paid to play basketball. Played some high level ball out there, made some NBA connections, started working for an NBA academy, met my wife, and that kind of led to jump-starting Andrew Heath basketball, bought the books. It led me to come back and be the director of athletics at Drew School and coach the boys team there. So yeah, it was a whole experience. The Chinese market, at least in terms of basketball, it's kind of fascinating to observe and be a part of. They love the sport through and through. The NBA players, even like high level Division I, they know all the teams, they know all the coaches, they got all the jerseys and the T-shirts, and they will build stuff like overnight to make it happen. So for some of like the games I would play in, if it was, let's say we had to travel down to like Shanghai to play in a game, we might go to this like lot where the game's supposed to be played, just an empty lot. And like, tomorrow there'll be a game here. Like, what are you talking about? Just an empty lot. We come back tomorrow at 3:00. There's a full basketball court there, and not like an outdoor basketball court, like an indoor arena basketball court.
Wow.
And you're just like, how is this possible? It's just the population size and density. They're able to do stuff and capitalize on stuff that's just kind of hard to like wrap your brain around. And yeah, no, it was definitely life changing, and it kind of like spurred everything. And I guess like jumping over stuff, but fast forward a little bit, it kind of led to like everything that I'm doing now.
For sure. And I love, so it absolutely was this organic process. My first question for you is, were you a point guard in basketball?
Yeah, point guard, shooting guard. I'm like 6'2" on a good day.
Yeah. Okay. And so why I say that is because, like, I think as a point guard, you're used to being in control, and you have to think the game through, especially being undersized. And then,
Yeah,
growing up in the Northeast, I think there's an academic influence. There's a lot of structure, especially within sports here. And so
yeah,
it's like going through these steps of like going from playing point guard and playing college basketball to living in a good market where there's opportunities, where you're able to work at two different schools, and then begin to see the administrative side and the business side of the sport holistically, and then beginning to see how this overseas thing even works, which is
right.
like after you go to grad school, it's like, okay, let me explore this opportunity. So at that point, when you go back overseas, you probably are already thinking way more of like an administrator and a coach, which probably made you a lot better of a basketball player because you just understand like conceptually what's making the show tick beyond the guys actually playing. So like that was like the icing on the cake as far as like refining you professionally to then set you on your course for what happens next. And so you've gotten to sniff out now basketball from the developmental level, from the collegiate level, and then the professional level. And basketball is a sport that has a global footprint.
Yeah.
And so for the work that you do now, would you say that like that high school area, and we've talked about this a little bit, but I definitely want you to share because you have a really good, strong understanding of the way the sport works. What's that sweet spot as a professional, like for you, like the administrative side, the developmental side, coaching, because you've seen everything.
Yeah. No, I think the high school age is definitely a sweet spot, like you said too, because I think just aside from athletics, I think you're entering into a realm of you're still a child, right? You're still like a 13, 14, 15, 16, 17-year-old kid, but you are entering adulthood. So we're still helping you along the way, but we're also throwing situations at you that's like, this is your job to figure out. This is your responsibility now. I'm gonna show you how to do it, but I'm gonna give you the keys to the car, and now you have to drive it. And then I think when you throw in, I guess just athletics and like skill development is another sweet spot of not everyone's gonna go on to play college. Like forget professional sports. Just like the next step after high school. I know for basketball, only 3% of high school athletes go on to play in college. And that's for all divisions, right? Whether it's 1, 2, 3, JUCO, NAIA, 3% of all high school athletes go on to play go on to play college basketball at the next level. So there's also, I think, a sweet spot of managing expectations, helping people realize, like, do they have potential to do that? And then, yeah, I do think in terms, I guess, specifically for my school, in terms of like an administrative and managing side, how do we grow and develop an athletic program within our conference, within our market? San Francisco is not a cheap city to live in. The school I work at, the tuition is not cheap. So we're definitely working with a certain demographic and a certain type of family. So how do we market and sell to them some principles of athletics and sports culture that they may not be privy to just because they didn't grow up with it. And so I do think it is an interesting combination. And then you throw in that with high school athletics too, different from college and it's certainly pros, you're dealing with a lot more parents, right? So you're not just talking to the athlete at practice sometimes you're talking to mom and dad. So you're not just telling the starting point guard why they're losing minutes or taking less shots or more shots. You also got to tell mom and dad why their child isn't playing as much or shooting as much. And I do think all of those experiences have led up to this. And I also think doing the marketing at Harvard and the ticket sales, I also saw how sports is entertainment for sure, right? Regardless if you're a state champion or if you're a basketball program that has 10 people coming to the game, it is a form of entertainment. So how do we market the game? How do we get more butts in the seat? How do we make it fun? Do we do halftime performances in games? Do we need cheerleaders? Do we need a dance team? So I think that's another interesting thing from my vantage point. While I am coaching, but I'm also the AD. So I'm thinking about like 5 different things. I'm also like telling my team to play 2-3 defense. It's like, okay, cool. We need to sell tickets next game, or we need to sell
Yeah.
Oh man, okay. The left bleachers are dirty. Like we got to
Yeah.
clean those up.
For
So
sure.
yeah.
Well, you've worn every hat, man, and so you understand the weight that that responsibility holds, which is good, and it gives you perspective, especially if you want to build a program. And
Mm,
you're still a very young guy with a lot of experience, and opportunities at the professional and the collegiate level, as far as having the amount of autonomy that you have, may not be available at that level. Whereas at the high school level, you can totally influence a program, and that'll be a lot more accessible. You can play your own brand of basketball, bring your own guys in, and just do things in the way that you see it. You can really instill your vision on a program. And I think that's really cool, especially when you've seen it from so many different places. And I believe if you do that at a high level, you're able to garnish more influence as opposed to like the traditional path of being like a graduate assistant to a coach to like a
well,
top assistant.
I think we lost it there for a second, at least on my
Oh,
end.
no. Oh, no
You
worries.
froze.
Yeah, no, what I was saying is the fact that you were able to wear different hats, you can
Mhm.
instill your vision onto a program. And at the high school level, it presents that opportunity that, like, someone at your age, it might be a little difficult at the collegiate or the professional level
Yep.
because unfortunately you're still inexperienced relative to guys that have been at 30, 40 years, but you have all this leadership skills and, like, you can run a program your way. I think that is really, really cool, especially wearing both hats with the athletic director. So now it's like, well, basketball, which has the capacity to potentially drive the most amount of fans in the stands, can
Yep.
drive tickets, which can also fund other programs in the school. And then
Yep.
there's always a direct relationship with like boys and girls basketball.
Yep.
So there's definitely unique opportunities. And then again, being a high level coach in the high school level, well, if you do really, really well, other opportunities may present themselves as well. And as we discussed, you do also have enough autonomy to also do, private sector work and having your own basketball company and things
Mhm.
of that nature. So yeah, I definitely agree with you. And like that area in which you're in, high school and training, presenting a lot of unique opportunities for like continuous professional development and impacting a lot of people. But going through your entire journey now, my question for you is, you're at where you're at. You went through a whole lot to get there. What would
Yep.
you tell your younger self, knowing what you know now about this process?
Um, don't necessarily worry about the immediate results, which is hard when you're 18, 19, 20 to like see the bigger picture. Um, but as long as you just like stick with it, stay 10 tones down, and just like keep working towards a goal, like things are gonna come your way. And I don't think like looking back on it like that was my intention, but I do think if you just keep trying and keep pushing towards something, you'll baby steps towards what you're trying to achieve. And I think a lot of times we're looking for like that big leap, right? Um, I think a lot of times me not getting those jobs was actually beneficial towards like trying to do what I wanted to do. Because I think a lot of my leaps and jumps and like moves forward came when like something didn't come my way. I was gonna say a lot of times I think me not getting something actually led to like a positive like jump or change. Um, like me going to China only happened because I didn't get some jobs. Me going back to grad school only happened because I didn't get the college coaching gigs, which like opened me up to different avenues and stuff. And then I think along the way too, you realize that like you're going to meet people on your journey that are going to help you out, but they may not help you out, which I think goes back to what I was saying earlier of like, they're going to help you out like years down the road, right? So I might have met someone when I was 21. Cool, we met, we networked, we connected. We may not do something or collab together until we're like 29 or 30 because we both need to like go on our journeys and get our experiences and stuff. Or I might meet someone at a networking conference in November. We may not do something together until next November. But you have to like stick with it and keep pushing and don't worry about the immediate successes. Just recognize that if you're doing the work, good things will come your way.
Yeah, absolutely. In planting those seeds and relationships. I think relationships are the greatest currency.
Yeah.
Um, Now, with the development of basketball as a whole, basketball as a business, that's what I find incredibly intriguing. And as
Yeah.
we discussed when we first met, it's like almost like called the Chris Brickley business model of being able to build a sustainable basketball training business. And so as those opportunities have began to expand, can you talk about some of your other ventures like Ball to Books and Andrew Heath Basketball and how just the global economy and people wanting basketball specific skills training in different ways to continue to develop, how that's led to some of those endeavors for you?
Yeah. No, I think it's a very interesting and unique market now. And like we were saying earlier, it wasn't a thing when I was in high school or college that you had someone who had an Andrew Heath basketball or the Chris Brickley wasn't a thing. Like he wasn't a guy that was influencing. Like he's an NBA 2K now, right? Like he's a character in a video game.
Yeah.
like, like
Yeah. He has his own shoe.
his
He
own
literally has
shit.
a Puma shoe that other basketball players are wearing called the Chris Brickley shoe.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah. So it definitely wasn't a thing. And I think, in all honesty, I do see the pros and cons of it, and I am part of it and am kind of feeding the industry. So I do see how it's hurting the game and also how it is helping the game at times. But yeah, no, I started Andrew Heath basketball when I moved back to the States. Similar kind of to the rest of my story was I was applying to stuff, nothing came through. So I was like, all right, let me start training because at this point when I moved back, everybody was training. The Chris Brickleys were growing. The to name other guys that are big like DJ Sackman, Drew Hanlon, Jordan Lawley, Tyler Ruff. They were growing their brand. They were making this a real business. So I was like, cool. Let me throw my hat in the ringer and see how this goes. And it started to take off, honestly, pretty quickly that first year for me. And the thing I always laugh at, and I think what social media kind of doesn't show, it took off for me, but I wasn't training like high level NBA Division I players. Like there's a lot of fifth graders and seventh graders and 45-year-old businessmen who are just looking to get in shape. But from a business standpoint and viewpoint, like, oh, like I'm making money. So yes, you're not this high level, high name player, but jokingly to what I was saying before, oh, I can pay my rent now. I can pay that car note with the money I am making training a lot of seventh grade kids or eighth grade kids or sixth grade kids.
Yeah.
But then from that, I did start to pick up some good high school players. Start picking up some good high school players. They have a few buddies that play in college. Start picking a few good college players. So started doing that. I did. I guess fast forward, but also looking back through it, like I've had the opportunity to help some guys train for the NBA draft. I've definitely helped some guys get overseas, especially with some of my connections. So that has been great, but you don't start off, at least some people might, right? If you are a former high level Division I player, maybe you can just jump into it. You train your buddies on the team. They know a few draft picks. Cool. But I feel like for your average person who's going to jump into this, you're training the 10-year-old down the street. Like that's your first client. That's who you're going to start off with.
Your best bet is definitely being more of like a business person that like understands how to develop packages, how to get retention,
Yeah.
how to like market to parents.
Yeah.
And like build upon there through word of mouth and having some positive results. Like the guy who's the former Division I player, like bench player that has his boys that then develops a business through proximity. That's very, very rare.
Yeah.
There's an element of getting lucky. And, if you want to do that too, like going into college, you probably ought to know that like you're going to be a coach anyways.
Right.
So like it has to be an organic process. And you also can't, like we discussed, you can't just jump into like being like a skills trainer, own a business, having never been a formal coach. I think that's also important as well to just understand the inner workings of like team dynamics and playing within a role. So all those things are essential. So we talked about some of the things that, have led to some progress in the sport of basketball. But as we talk about some societal trends or like some trends that you're seeing in the sport that might be an impact to society, talk about something that bothers you that you don't like that's trending in the evolution of basketball?
Well, I think one of the things that you actually just touched on, ideally, you have coached a team, you have some basketball background, and you jump into skills training. A lot of guys don't. A lot of guys and girls don't. And I think that is one of the things that is different from other countries. You have, for most other sports too, you have to have like some type of certification. Or if you go to another country, you have to be a certified coach. Usually it's through FIBA.
They have a FIBA basketball certification?
I have a USA basketball development license.
That's pretty cool.
And I help out with their like camps and clinics around the country sometimes. But there's a lot of people who just like, hey, I'm looking to get a part-time job or a side hustle. Let me start training kids. The highest level of basketball I've ever played is JV basketball in high school. I'm a huge Wizards fan, but cool. I'm just going to go train some kids. And even let's say, cool, they've YouTube some drill. Let's say they put their best effort into it. They do mean to not like scam the system or anything. But it's just like, oh, you've never had to like coach against a 2-3 defense. You've never had to like tell a kid how to finish with his offhand, or you've never had to do it yourself. How can you be out here like giving these kids advice and stuff? And then I think that leads to why we're seeing more kids like have all these great combination moves, or they look fantastic in cone drills, or if you put them in like even tryouts, wow, you looked amazing in tryouts. But then when it came to like our first week of practice, oh, you kind of struggled, but maybe you were just nervous. Okay, let's go to the game. And it's like, wow, the first 4 games is a different player than I saw in those individual workouts or tryouts, because so many kids now just do skill sessions, and they don't play pickup, they don't practice, they don't play enough. And then maybe so many kids do just skill sessions, and they're being taught by people who have never played before or have never coached before. So now it's this, and I do think we're seeing it on a bigger scale of, that's why a lot of like the MVPs in the NBA are now foreign guys, or we are seeing more foreign players like dominate. It used to be like there was one Dirk, right? Or like people don't realize Steve Nash is Canadian. Steve Nash is an international player, right? There used to be one of those guys or a few of those guys. Now it's like there's a whole team of international dudes that can probably like compete or beat our best players now.
They did in FIBA. They just did in FIBA.
It literally just happened. And I do think it is because that grassroots is changing for us, that it isn't changing overseas in that way. Where if you go to France or Spain or wherever, like these professional teams have academies that have youth teams, and those youth team coaches are like certified coaches, or maybe they were even a top tier coach 10 years ago, and now they happen to coach the like U12 Barcelona basketball team. So you're still getting top level coaching where, and once again, this isn't like throwing shade or anything, but I know if you go out in San Francisco, there might be a guy who has his training company and he might have 40 or 50 kids, but it's just like, oh man, you're not teaching them like how to read a backdoor cut. Or they have no, like you would be amazed if you came to like some of my practices where I'm throwing out basic terminology and the kids have like no idea what I'm talking about. What's a seal? What's a backdoor cut?
Oh,
What's strong side, weak side? And it's just like, oh man, like you could dribble, you could shoot, you know all the moves, but wow, just there's basic stuff that we're just kind of lacking.
for sure.
Yeah.
I think that stems from the fact that in the sport of basketball, there's like no barriers to begin playing. Like I can go to a YMCA and I can just start running pickup, and I can play like a lot of basketball, and I can get a skills coach and I can practice every single day on my jump shot and enhance my dribbling skills. But
Yeah.
like it's very difficult to like get in like a pickup game or like a structured setting where you are working on your skill development, but you're playing real basketball. And like
Yeah.
real basketball in between the lines, like with an official, is very different. And like there's a very distinct way as like what is the right way to play basketball. In the American game, I feel like beginning with like AAU culture, because kids can jump teams so frequently, so there's never any chemistry, and then coaches have to get into this like recruiting mindset where they're trying to just create the best environment that's most appealing to the kid. And so now it's like you don't really want to discipline the kid because the kid might jump ship. And so a basketball player who's highly skilled is just going to be given free range to do whatever the hell they want. And they're going to develop really, really bad habits, and they don't know how to play with other people. And like, you know, even if you're a skills coach, and you don't really have a great deal of experience, what you can absolutely do is help your kids dribble the ball better, dribble with your offhand, and just conceptualize the game. And like, you know as well as I do that a guy doesn't have to be crazy talented, but if you can use both hands, finish at the rim effectively, and be able to hit an open shot and defend, you're going to have a shot to contribute on a team. And so like, how can you add value? That's what I love about basketball, is because it actually is really inclusive. And the fact that like, you're going to have a distinct role, and now you have to figure out within what your team is trying to achieve and what the skill sets are of your teammates, how you can fit within that. Like there's like too many, what's the term here? It's like too many Chiefs, not enough Indians. Like we need more Indians in the game of basketball. That will create just like a much better, television product of the sport, and the development will lead to longer careers. It's like every single year. I find it really interesting, not shifting gears, but I think it's just a reflection of like the developmental system, especially amongst American players, where like you see guys that are drafted in like the mid to late first round. It takes 3 to 4 years before they can like really contribute to a team. It's like, well, they probably would have just been best staying in college for an extended period of time and like actually just playing basketball. And so like that's just like totally neglected. So it's like, well, what even is the return of like a lottery pick or like a young guy? Like basketball is absolutely a man sport, and that just comes from experience and having seen all different coverages, all different sets, all knowing different type of spacing, knowing the terminology. We're like, that's going to allow you to contribute. So it's like the skills are great, and basketball players are absolutely better now more than ever, which is like the thing that you can't neglect, which is like why it's such a double-edged sword. They're like, I don't know if this is necessarily good long term. So if we're struggling in like international play, definitely raises some eyebrows.
Yeah. No, I think, well, I don't know if you saw recently, Carmelo Anthony on his podcast just literally spoke about that, what you were saying with his own son, of how he's not pushing the like one and done like message on him. And it's more of just like, take your time. There's nothing wrong with going to college for 2 years or 3 years. To what you're saying, it's like, yes, a lot of guys go to at least the top guys, right? Go to the Kentuckys or the Dukes or the Kansases, have a great year, go get drafted. And then maybe you hear about them. Maybe they go to the G League for 3 years, come back and play. But sometimes it's like, they get drafted, and then that's it. 6 years down the line, you hear they're like the seventh man in a playoff game. It's like, that dude was a 4th overall pick. Like, what the hell?
And that's not even a bad thing, to be the 7th man on a team in a playoff game. Like, that's a good thing. But the bar is so high, like we can't even like reasonably allow the player time to grow.
Right. Yeah. And then the other part too, I do think it is interesting. There's always going to be like a generational debate of like, was my generation better than your generation or whatever else. You're starting to see at least more of like the recent retirees like admit to what you're just saying. Like, oh no, like these players are 100% better than we were. Like you put 5 average NBA, like current average NBA guys on the court right now, their skill sets are immensely better than like 5 average guys from the 90s, right? Like I love Charles Oakley. I love Anthony Mason, right? I love those dudes. But it's just like, you guys aren't keeping up with like the players now. But I will admit, they're just like, you're more skilled, you are more athletic for sure, but you're just not doing the little nuances of the game that like make it a beautiful game to watch, a beautiful game to play. It is very highlight driven, and I do think, at least in the States, we're producing a lot of great highlight players, but we're not a lot of like, okay, cool, let's go out and like win the 4th quarter type of players.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, man. And I'm interested to see if there's a coach or a program in college basketball that's almost like counterculture, and like we're gonna still play. So like Greg Popovich, he's adapted, but he still has an old fashioned style of play with what the Spurs do.
Yeah.
But like even you saw Mike Krzyzewski, who started evolving into more spacing and
Yeah.
getting one and done players. So even the college coaches, and college basketball is a far more rigid game than NBA basketball. Even that game has adapted. So it's like, well, where in the States can we find a reference of, something somewhat reminiscent of like how basketball, to purists like you and I, how it should be played. Oh man, I sound like I'm getting old now. But anyway, man, my question for you, we talked about this in the past, and it's all part of the evolution, and it's definitely controversial. But what are your thoughts on analytics in the game of basketball? Do you find it to be progressive? Are they utilizing it too much? What do you think about it?
I think, and kind of like when we were talking offline about it, I do think it's needed, and I think now it is information that is useful. I don't know if we should like live and die by it though. So I do think it is important to go back and look at, okay, cool, especially for like situations. Fourth quarter, down by 6, we need these type of shots. Or they can even have analytics for like lineups. Okay, cool. Like this is our starting 5. We're going to keep that 5 to start the game off with, but we actually have a better plus minus when we have these 2 bench players in the game with those 3 starters. So I do think those things are important, which you honestly like don't know from the eye test, right? I think that's the whole battle of analytics versus the eye test. So yes, I think the eye test gives you the starting 5, right? Okay, those are my 5 best players. I can see that. I know that. Boom. But then I think the analytics give you, well, actually, we average better rebounds, less turnovers, and more points when these 2 guys come in the game off the bench. So I do think ideally that's the sweet spot. Kind of like we were talking offline about, we hear the horror stories of like when you live and die by it. We're talking about that Rockets game where they missed 26 threes in a row because they were living and dying by it. And they're like, well, analytics say we only take this shot. Whether we make it or miss it, we're going to keep shooting corner threes. And it's like, well, at some point, the eye test has to come back and go, we've missed a lot of threes. Like, not even looking at the numbers. I just know we're 0 for 10 on 3. Let's take a different shot. But I do think it is needed. So I'm definitely not, when you hear like the old school guys who are like completely against it and they're saying it's ruining the game, I don't subscribe to that. I do think it is needed, but I also don't think the Daryl Morey's of the world are needed, where it's just like, I'm not even, because some guys are like, let's just have the guys go out there. I'm not even going to look at you. This is what the numbers say. And it's just like, well, you do have to have some sort of an eye test. But I do think the analytics do get to the underlying truth sometimes that, if we're being honest, just have human error that we don't see because of our own biases sometimes. So it definitely is needed for sure.
I agree 100%. It's definitely about finding that middle ground. It's moderation within everything. 2 things that stood out to me, though. We start thinking about analytics in basketball. It's like we can start throwing all these numbers and like all these hypotheticals, and then they just turn into numbers. And I think that's like the run on analytics came about, where it's like you're trying to like, okay, in this scenario, you're going to do this. In this scenario, you're going to do this. No more mid-range jumpers, corner threes. And like you're getting into like all these specifics that aren't accounting for like the nuances of like what makes the game flow. Like, cause there's gonna be a lot of like gray matter through the midst of a game that like analytics can't quite, tell the story on. And so what basketball really is about, and I think all sports, is like situations and knowing the probability in situations. I believe that it's all about like this kind of happy medium approach here. You don't want to lose like the nuances of the game. And like there's just things that the numbers can't quantify. I think that you want to figure out some key metrics that apply to what your team needs to get better at. And then make them understand like high probability decisions that they need to make that
Yeah.
can like help get them out of certain situations, like late minute, like 2 minute up by like five, how to
Right.
handle it, or like on an inbound, or like who is their best shooter, like in a must foul situation, who you want to get the ball in the hands of, or
Yeah.
what lineup plays best together. But you don't need to know all those things. And so like these kids can't retain all this information,
Right.
especially when they have like a rigorous curriculum in school. And
Yeah.
so like you just want to like give them like an understanding of like this is the information that you need to know, and like the math is telling you that this is in your favor. But
Mhm.
like what I really don't like is like when you're trying to eliminate small things like the mid-range jump shot, and it's like if your coach is saying don't shoot these shots, these are not good shots, but
Yeah.
like you're a guy that is really good off the dribble trying to create space, there's a big clogging the paint, but you have the shot and like you've made that shot your entire life, take the damn shot. Like, or Kevin Durant, you're not going to tell Kevin Durant to not shoot mid-range jumpers.
Right.
And so like basketball minds have to absolutely step in and be like, no, shut up. We know basketball,
Right.
but they need to have an openness to saying, okay, let's utilize these analytics in these certain scenarios. And if you can have that right mix of like a progressive coaching staff with an analytics team that understands what the coach's philosophy is, I believe it can revolutionize basketball. But we tend to look at analytics in this sort of all or nothing approach. And I
Right.
don't think that organizations have really figured out how to implement it into their way of playing effectively yet. I think we're just still in the very, beginning of this new practice.
Yeah, and I think yeah, to what your point, I don't think the players should worry about it per se, right? I think it should be 100% like a coaching staff like responsibility, because like you're saying, whether you're still playing in school or whether you're playing in the pros, it's like I don't got time to worry about like which lineup is the best. You tell me who to play with, I'll do my job. You do your job. But no, I agree, and but I do think just the way the game's moving, and just having more tech be involved in sports too, it's going to be hard to ignore or just completely deny for sure.
Yeah, that I think the concept of tech, this is what really intrigues me. We've talked about some of this where it's like positions,
Mhm.
positions in basketball. And that's where I think analytics can paint a unique picture in regards to, well, what does this player actually do effectively? Who is this person? You're a guard. Well, what type of guard are you? I
Yeah,
think that we now need to begin identifying players in a different type of way. Like I saw a study where like Gary Payton Jr. is a point guard, but he's really a center based off of the value of what he adds to the Warriors
yeah,
roster and like the amount
yeah,
of shots and what he takes. And so like taking the analytics of a player's performance and being able to properly categorize him so that when it comes to like recruiting or like a coach saying, I need this, you could say, I need a ball stopping point guard, or
right,
like, I need a defensive minded rim protecting big. I
yeah.
think we can definitely allow the numbers to create like a tagging system of identifying a player's skill set, and it can allow coaches to build their roster much better.
Yeah. No, it's almost like the kids now with like 2K, they have like badges for the players, right? And it
Yeah.
is yeah, I think the Gary Payton example is perfect, right? Especially like watching him play out here. Yes, he's listed as a guard. He's the height of a guard. He definitely is a center.
Marcus Smart too.
Yeah, 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 100%. So I think that was a perfect example. Yeah.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on positionless basketball, or just like the progression of positions and how that impacts spacing and the way the game's played as a whole?
I think the kind of time when we're talking about too, I think we are getting to a point where like back in the day, positions were almost more concrete because like your big man couldn't shoot threes and couldn't dribble. Your point guard and your shooting guard were probably like your best shooters, best ball handlers. And that three was probably your most athletic, best defender. And then your four was like your bruiser guy, right? Maybe he developed into a Tim Duncan, but you had a lot of like power forwards who were just like too big to play football wide receivers, right? It's just like,
Perfect reference for sure. They're literally like your clunky guy that's like just gonna eat fouls and like not skilled enough to be a center.
yeah. So like,
Yeah.
and that's kind of how it used to be. Now it is like, and then I think that's why like the like Magic Johnsons of like the world were so like, oh my God, the 6'9" point guard, or even when like Penny Hardaway came in, and even like, well, LeBron's still amazing, but like when it's like this guy that's 6'7", 6'8", 6'9", 6'10", that can do everything, like what's going on? Fast forward, now we have Victor Wembanyama, who's like 7'5", doing sham gods, which is insane to see.
Yeah, for sure.
So I do think there is positionless basketball in the sense of, yes, more players can do more stuff, and you do have centers that can bring the ball up and are legitimately like catch and shoot threats now, or you do have bigs that can guard your 6'4" to 6'6" wing. But I do think there is a point where, kind of like you're saying, it may not be like concrete positions, but like more of roles. So like, cool, you can all do this. We still need someone who's going to like crash the boards. So great, you can pass and dribble and shoot. Who's going to go crash the boards and like get us a rebound? We're still going to need like, who's our best defender? So we might all be 6'9" wings that can dribble and shoot. Who's going to be the 6'9" wing that can just go guard the other best 6'9" wing? We're still going to need someone that's just like the lead facilitator, right? So I do think it's going to be a combination of, there may not be a concrete position. And I do feel like historically, if you were a certain height, you were also pushed into a certain position. So if you were that 6'7" kid in high school, it's like, oh, we're going to throw you in the post. And then maybe you go to college, maybe you grow another inch or two, so now you're 6'9". So by the time you get to the league, you are a power forward, maybe an undersized center at 6'9", 6'10", where now it's like, oh no, you're 6'6", 6'7". Let's teach you how to shoot a three. Let's teach you how to dribble. So then by the time you do get to the league, maybe you are like a Brandon Miller or a Paul George, where back in the day, Paul George, that was like Robert Horry, right? Like they're both the same height, same build, but Robert Horry didn't grow up learning how to like handle the ball and be like a wing. It's like, oh no, you're 6'9", go on the post. And then he just developed a jump shot. So then he was Big Shot Rob that we all knew him to be. So I do think it is going to be that. We are going to see more guys that are just skilled at all heights. And I personally think, I think we talked about it too, I do think maybe in 30, 40, 50 years, there is going to be like, hey, if you're not 6'7", it's going to be hard to get into the NBA. And it is even now, right? Like if you're 6'2", 6'3" in the NBA, it's like, oh wow, like you've made it. But I think it is like, no, like there might be one or two Steph Currys in the league years to come, just because we are seeing 6'8", 6'9", 6'10" guys be catch and shoot threats, handle the ball. But I think we're still going to need like a guy that can facilitate, a guy that can defend, who's going to rebound, who's going to just do the dirty stuff, right? Some points in the game, we need a guy who's going to dive on the floor, take a charge, the non-glamorous stuff. But it definitely is developing in that direction of like everybody can do everything.
I think guys like Steph Curry get by and have had the sustained success that he has had because he plays with Klay Thompson, who can hide him on defense.
Yeah.
And so there are definitely limitations that having like a smaller guard that can just run around ripping threes, you're gonna give up some on the defensive end. So my question for you is, with this evolution of basketball and like having guys that are fairly skilled in being able to switch on defense is incredibly important. Just having the flexibility to do that. Do some of these new age concepts influence some of the skills that you value in your players, as far as like, okay, like I would want a big that poses a shooting threat, where you're looking to incorporate these things? So like if you have like a bigger type of guy that like literally cannot move his feet and like try to trap a guard at the top of the key, you're just like, oh, it's gonna be hard for you to play because like I need you to do these things. Have these new age issues impacted you and how you run your team?
Yes and no. So yes, I definitely think there is, and I think most coaches now that coach youth basketball, there is the Steph Curry effect, right? Where like everyone wants to shoot threes. You walk in the gym, kids are chucking up NBA threes. I do think, yeah, we have a lot of, like, even now for my current high school team, which is part of like just the way basketball is going. They shoot more threes than twos, right? And it's like, oh man, like even for me growing up, like I was a pretty good shooter. Maybe I would take 6 threes a game, and that was only if I made like my first couple, right? Like, okay, cool, you're 2 for 2, you can shoot 3 more. Okay, now you're 4 for 5, yeah, put up 2 more. Now it's like kids are putting up like 6 threes a half, right? Like you're like the best player on a team, if they're a guard, might shoot 12 threes a game. And so I think, but that's just the way it's going. So definitely seeing that change. But then to your question about, and I do think that's interesting of like, if I have a big who can't move his feet, I think that ties into, well, what does this kid want out of basketball individually? Because there is, if I get like a 6'4", 6'5", 6'6" kid who's playing high school basketball, who's like, high school basketball is like the end for me. I know it's the end for me. I'm going to enjoy my high school career, and then I'm going to go do whatever else in life. It's like, okay, cool. I am going to put you in the post because you're going to be one of the bigger kids in the league, and I'm going to teach you a drop step and a jump hook and stuff. And that's what it is. But I do have a current kid. He's a sophomore. He's about 6'4" sophomore. He's probably like a power forward for us right now. I do put him in the post because he is one of the bigger kids in the league. But I have had conversations with him of like, because he has been like, hey, I'm thinking about playing in college. If you play in college, you're going to be a guard. Even if you grow 2 more inches, you're going to be a guard, maybe a 3. But like, You're not going to go into college and be a 6'6" center, right? Yeah. So that's where I think there is a sweet spot of like, yes, I do need to teach you how to guard on the wing or give you some perimeter skill sets. But then also at the same time, in order for our team to win our games, I need you to go in the post, get that drop step down, and give me 10 rebounds. But so I think, that does come from player to player. So yeah, like I'm on a current high school team. We actually have a playoff game tonight. I have a senior who's 6'6". He's actually a soccer player by trade. So like, it is cool. Let's teach you how to bang in the post, help us get some rebounds, run rim to rim. But then that 6'4" sophomore, it's like, all right, I'm gonna teach you this stuff for now, but in the off season, let's start working on expanding your game and getting you used to catching and shooting, putting the ball on the floor, defending, because you personally are going to need that if your goal is to play after high school.
And I think that's really cool that like you can have him be a big for you now. And if all things considered happen the right way and he develops, well, he can be a stretch four for you, and he's going to present a unique mismatch if he can develop into what you see for him. And he does get to that college level player. So he gets to evolve and having done different things because his mindset of having been a big in high school could actually help him down the road as well. Right. So, it is to his advantage just getting total buy-in and a lot of other variables that come with that. But no, I agree. And I love talking about these position evolutions and development. Same thing in football. Very similar. Like, you play DN for us because you're a big physical kid, but you're probably going to be a strong safety or outside linebacker. So you better start working on how to drop your hips and moving out in space because that's what your real size is. But we need you to go sack quarterback right now.
Right.
Yeah. For sure. But no segueing, man. You got a lot of responsibilities. I know you're saying you're a new father, so congratulations on Appreciate that. And then obviously athletic director. And so what I've learned, the name of the game is performance. We've talked about it from like the player side and professional development. But really now, you got a lot of responsibilities. Where is your health and your physical fitness at right now? Like, do you have some habits as far as getting X amount of sleep or foods or different things that you did as a player that you've brought in with you in a professional life to allow you to lead and do the things you need to do on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, no, I think for sure, definitely took care of my body, both what I put into it and also just working out, taking care of it. I will say for all the new parents out there, they tell you how much you're not going to sleep, and you don't really know what they're talking about till you're in it. So yeah, I have a 3-month-old son at home right now. So I'm big on like body weight work, just push-ups, squats, dips, stuff like that. Cause I'm not making out the house to get anything in. But before that, man, I was big on, Definitely hydrating. I think in college, I honestly like, and it to be transparent, like some guys can party and have a good time and go and perform. I wasn't one of those guys. I didn't drink during the season. Didn't do anything else or put anything else in my body. Off season, I definitely enjoyed myself and had fun. Like you definitely need a balance for sure. I think I really saw that during track. I think playing basketball, and I know other buddies who play other sports were like, yeah, you can go out to like the kegger the night before or have a few beers and it doesn't affect your performance. I saw that, especially being a sprinter, as like, oh, my body needs to be like in tune. So like not putting anything I don't want in it. I actually, during that time period, started to not eat a lot of like pork, which I saw just like had a good effect. So like to this day, I still don't eat. I try to avoid pork by all means. I still eat meat, but definitely try to eat less red meat, more chicken and fish. And for the people that like I started doing like ice plunging and like hot saunas and stuff. Got into hot yoga before my son was born. Eat a lot of sea moss and like sour sop and tea and stuff like that. So definitely, I'm a big component. I'm sure you're familiar with like the Ocho versus Science, the whole thing like Chad Ochocinco, where he's like, I eat McDonald's all the time.
Oh yeah, I've heard him talk about
My
that.
body
Yeah.
can do whatever. Yeah, I've given up the Whoppers and Big Macs and burgers and fast food stuff. So definitely understand what you put in your body is what you'll get out. And yeah, but before having my kid, I was honestly like still like retired hooper, retired athlete, was still playing pickup 3 times a week, still working out. Like I said, I was going to hot yoga on the weekends. We live in the Bay Area, so hiking's a big thing. So try to go on hikes with my wife occasionally. But now it's turned into push-ups, body squats, and stroller walks around the neighborhood.
I hear you.
But still trying to stay active.
Yeah, and I think that's so valuable when you're like working with athletes and players, like you're still fairly active. And so like you can really give them like, different cues on like what they need to do. And you understand that from a performance standpoint, especially when you're a disciplined athlete yourself. And then it's funny because as you get older, those things definitely matter a hell of a lot more. But what I noticed is like when I go and eat crappy food after not eating crappy food or like drinking after not drinking, and it hits you 10 times worse. Oh my God, it's so bad. So that's what could be difficult, man. But like really it's like what I've learned now, like with sports too, is like I didn't play basketball growing up. And so like I blew my knee out a handful of times. And so like I have some athletic ability left that I want to get out of myself. And so like I've used basketball as like this metaphor for like where am I at as an entrepreneur. And like when I first got out there, I was just like a fast football player. Then it got into like, okay, I can hit an open 3. Now I can create a little bit of a dribble off of like my 3. Now I can hit you with like a combo and hit a jump shot. Like I can defend. So it's like I've watched my game expand. And like just like as an entrepreneur, it's like I'm actually realizing that like being sharp and like not being sleep deprived and staying hydrated, that's going to legitimately impact my performance, the flow of my words, my conversations, everything. And it also like I've tracked this metric with like wearables called HRV. When I get a crappy night's sleep, my jump shot is off like noticeably, and I'm not good enough to like, give up some of that. Like there's a noticeable difference. Obviously, like you take a guy like Kobe Bryant, I'm sure like in year 18, 19, he can go like kill a whole bottle, then like wake up at 4 and just do it. Yeah. But yeah, man, the margin for error diminishes. So like, performance absolutely fuels everything mentally and physically. So that's great to hear that. So yeah, as we wrap up now, man, it's been obviously a great conversation. I covered a lot of things. Peeling back now, obviously you've climbed quite a ladder in your professional journey. Do you have like, what's the word I'm looking for? Like what is the pinnacle? How do you quantify, like, where do you want to get to next, or where do you want to take it with the game of basketball? We've already achieved so much, or is that something that you're not even really thinking about?
I think it is to a certain degree. I think, and you can probably attest to like being a former athlete, you know when like there's still like something left in the tank, or there's like more potential you can get, right? So whether you're trying to like increase your bench or jump higher. It's like, oh, I think I can lift 10 more pounds, or I think if I keep working on this, I can jump 2 more inches. So I don't think I've tapped everything that's like in my reserve yet. And I do think with COVID, there were a few years of just like being stalled out or just not being able to progress the way I wanted to. So I definitely do think I want to tap back into more like the international market with basketball. And I know we were talking offline. I want to kind of start doing like touring teams, and I've done some international camps in the past, which led me to a lot of my connections and like the ball to book stuff. So definitely want to tap more into that. I do think, and we kind of talked about it too, the coaching aspect. I also, playing, I never thought I would see myself as a coach or a high school coach. I definitely, this is my third year doing it. Got some like good success with the school, kind of turned the program around a little bit. But definitely falling in love with that. So I guess there's a question of how long do I want to coach? Do I want to, be that high school coach that coaches for 20, 30 years? Or do I want to, do this for 5 years, try to climb the ladder, climb the ranks? But I definitely think there is just more that I want to accomplish and do. I don't necessarily think there's a dream gig or job anymore. I think when I was younger, there definitely was like, I want to be this. I want to have this title at this job. I think now, which I've kind of learned along the way, is I just want to continue to grow and expand, and whatever that may be. I do think having the different avenues, maybe I do coach high school basketball for the next 15, 20 years, but then I help kids from international countries get into the States for scholarship opportunities, or with Ball to Books, we do a lot of free clinics and giving resources back to like underserved communities. Maybe I dive deeper into that. And I think currently where we live in San Francisco, there is a big disparity in like homeless problem. Like maybe I focus on that. But I do think just having hands and different grasp on different things will lead to more opportunities. So I don't have a concrete answer for you. I just know I'm not done growing and expanding. So I am excited myself to see like what happens next, or what opens up for me.
No, I love it. And I think that answer will just reveal itself, which is like the beauty of the process. So as we wrap things up now, obviously learned quite a bit about you and your journey. Do you have a personal mantra or like mission statement that sort of guides you, that you live by and fuels you on like your endeavors?
Yeah. I don't know if it's, I can't claim it as my own, but a lot of times I'll wake up and I'll just say like, I got another shot. I got another 24. So regardless of what happened yesterday, regardless how my week is going, I was given another opportunity to go out and be my best, to do my best. And, whether you're a religious person, you might be like, God gave me another day, or if you're, to follow a different belief system. But I think each day we have an opportunity to go out and just be the best version of ourselves. And I think a lot of times we are going to have bad days. I think that's the other thing too, people don't really realize or buy into, is that every day isn't going to be perfect. You're going to mess up. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to lose. You're going to embarrass yourself. But you go to sleep, you wake up, you get a new 24. So make the most of it.
I love that, man. I'm big in what's important now, which stands for WIN, and it's an acronym of basically like, if I focus on what I need to focus on now, it's ultimately going to take me to my goal. But I can't focus on what's going to happen tomorrow or yesterday. It's like, what do I got to do right now? And so like I try to quantify my days into like wins and losses, and like I've really locked in this year, like where we are to this date. Like I am 33-10 on the 43 days of the year so far, and like really getting locked into like, okay, well, where do I need to be by day 40, by day 65? This is where I want to be by the second week of April. Like I'm looking at like the cycles where like I'm starting to get in tune with like setting like where I want to be by certain times. And then just, the blessing in and of itself to be like, I got a shot. Like today, I got a shot. Like I can control the keys, or excuse me, I control the cards, to get the outcome that I want. Because there might come a day or a time where you don't hold the cards anymore.
Right.
And so as long as you're in control, you got to make the most of that. So I love that. As we wrap up, I said that 3 times now. Yeah, this is the last part here. But I definitely want to just give you the floor. And I'm curious to actually, if you want to share a little bit more about Ball to Books, but where people can find you, some of the work that you're currently doing, any projects, but so the viewers can, keep track of you on your journey.
Yeah. The website is andrewheathbasketball.com. Same thing for the Instagram handle at Andrew Heath Basketball. And then Ball to Books. The website for Ball to Books is books.com. And then same thing for the Instagram. Ball to Books, I guess a quick summary of Ball to Books. It started off with a friend I made while I was doing a camp in Australia. She's the captain for the Mexican national team, and we were just talking about like how we can give back to the community and what we can do. So it started off with just like a internet social media like challenge where I donate book supplies to a school in my community. I tag 5 people, and then it just repeats like that. And it went pretty well. So we did, I think, 6 different countries, over like 50 different schools that were able to donate stuff. So we initially were like, all right, we're just going to do this one thing. Cool, whatever. But then people were like, oh, when's the next challenge? When's the next thing? So we started doing free clinics, and we kept doing more challenges. And now we do, like for Black History Month, we're posting a different person in Black history that we may not learn about in school. So like educational resources. So yeah, that's what that currently is. We just brought on Coach Manu, who's a professional coach. He's been coaching in Argentina and Mexico. So we're trying to, same thing, the whole like international thing I think is big for me, and just expanding that in the basketball scene. That's Ball to Books. And then upcoming projects, I guess for me personally, I'm going to have like some summer camps and some like individual clinics once the season ends. I would say stay tuned to all those sites and social media profiles, because there's going to be a lot of updates coming this summer. Kind of as I mentioned, I think, at least for me personally, just starting, I feel like, get the traction after coming out of COVID, where it's like 100% back to normalcy. So excited to kind of hit the ground running. Me personally, I am going to also be helping out with the USA Basketball Clinic that's coming back to San Francisco. So I helped them put on one last year, going to help out this year too. So excited just to keep learning and growing and pick up some tips from some of the best coaches out there as well too.
Yeah, man, it's inspiring. It's incredibly inspiring. Andrew, you're an expert in your field, man. You've cut your teeth. You've put in the work. Now you're a leader in your community. Definitely making a difference and really just embodying a high performance lifestyle. I didn't know that there were other people out there, especially in another sport, that really had worn all those hats and is now, running their own program, but also running a business. And so it was really cool just, getting connected with you and then being able to share this conversation on this podcast. And like you had discussed earlier about relationships, hope that we're able to, maintain, connection, and somewhere along the lines, if it's like analytics or something health related, or I'm sure our paths will absolutely cross in some sort of collaborative venture, man. But, no, really appreciate having you on the episode. This is a really good listen, especially for sports fans, coaches, people into health data and analytics, and just the evolution of sports from two younger coaches that have worn multiple hats. So that is all we got. Thank you once again, Andrew, for joining us. Performance Pulse checking out. Win the day, guys.
Appreciate you guys. Peace.